Welcome to the Virginia Education Center for Asphalt Technology, and this is the module for Project Communications and Safety. My name is David Lee. I'm with the Virginia Asphalt Association. Let's talk just a minute about why you're here. You're here today because Virginia Department of Transportation's road and bridge specifications, particularly section 11401, basically requires you to hold a certification, in this case in Asphalt Field 1 or Asphalt Field 2. But there are a number of certifications that are required by VDOT as part of these specifications. So if you go to section 11401 of the road and bridge specifications, you'll see a myriad of different certification requirements, whether it be asphalt, aggregate, concrete, or even slurry surfacing or surface treatment. So go to section 11401 of the road and bridge specifications, and that gives you a whole list of these particular road and bridge specification requirements for each certification. Specifically, in this case, we're talking about Asphalt Field 1, maybe Asphalt Field 2, maybe even slurry surfacing or surface treatment. But for Asphalt Field classes, we're not required to have a proficiency. So if you look at the proficiency exam requirements on this slide, you'll see that each one of these has a different requirement. So if you're in the asphalt plant side, you'll see that there are proficiency requirements for Asphalt Plant 1, Asphalt Plant 2, and even mixed design. But in Asphalt Field, the proficiency requirement is taken care of in a different way. So once you take the exam for Asphalt Field 1 or Asphalt Field 2, or even surface treatment or slurry seal, you will be done. You will not need to take a specific separate proficiency exam. Before we go on any further though, I want to make sure everybody understands that you've got to be part of VDOT University. VDOT U is exactly how VDOT handles all those certifications that we just talked about that are required as part of section 114 of the road and bridge specifications. So you have to have an account within VDOT U with VDOT. Just by going to Germanna and taking the class, which is the first step in getting all this done and getting all your exams and passing your exams and getting a proficiency if you need be, that's the first step. But you also have to have a VDOT U account with VDOT. And you'll see that there is an actual link here on the slide that takes you directly to the location where VDOT University is. So you can go in there and you can create an account for yourself if you don't have one. Certainly, if you have one, make sure that it's up to date, because if you don't, and you take all these classes, even though you go through the whole process, you become certified in Asphalt Field 1 or Asphalt Field 2 through Germanna, you will not necessarily be certified in accordance with VDOT because they do not have you in their system. What happens if that occurs is you go into an orphan account, and it's basically lost, so that VDOT doesn't recognize that you have a certification even though you've gone through that whole process. So please be sure that you go through VDOT University and ensure you have an account so that when Germanna is done with your exams, they can upload it to VDOT and everything will be there and your certification will be accepted by VDOT. So make sure you take that step. Let's move on now to talk a little bit about some of the specifics and how VDOT communicates all the requirements for their projects. So all these things are vital for project organization. So VDOT has gone through a whole series for many, many years throughout its organizational life to create a series of different types of documents that illustrate and describe the work. And those include everything from standard drawings. So anytime you have a specific drawing that seems to reoccur, a lot of these might be drainage structures and things like that, that the same sort of design is necessary for all projects. So they'll create a standard drawing for that. So you'll have a whole series of standard drawings. They also have a series of standard specifications. So that's that book. That's that, many people call it the VDOT Bible. That's the standard specifications. It's issued somewhere anywhere between 4 and 8 years typically. So the standard book has all the specifications that are standard to all projects. Next thing would be the supplemental specifications. Supplemental specifications are basically exactly that. So as I said, VDOT's unable to actually create that document obviously every single year, so you don't have that same large standard specification book reoccurring every year. It's, like I said, 4 to 8 years. So they'll create supplemental specifications. Things obviously change. As soon as the book's printed, things are already changing. So they have to create changes to those specifications. Supplemental specifications are exactly what they say. They're supplemental to the actual standard specifications. They are typically applicable to all projects. So those supplemental specifications are something that you need to be aware of as well. Then you actually have the set of plans. So you're going to build a construction project. We all understand that a set of plans are necessary for that very specific project that you're building. You're building a project, whether it be a little turning lane for a primary road in Accomack County, or it be the I-81 5 miles of bridges and interchanges and it costs $100 million. They always have a set of plans like that. So that set of plans will actually have specific details for that specific project. From there, for that specific project or the other projects, there'll be something called special provisions. Those special provisions are specific to a project. Now, they may be carried over and be in multiple projects, but they're not standard. They're special provisions. So those special provisions are written for and to be utilized on specific projects, just like those plans were, and they'll be in a contract document. And then lastly, there's special provision copy notes. Those copy notes are generally something that are specific to that project. So they've written a specific note that's as part of that project, and it's a note or a special provision copy note for that project. So on this slide now, let me point out to you that hierarchy. What I just went through actually was in order. So what I just talked to you about in the previous slide was in specific order of what their hierarchy of priority is. So that hierarchy is very important. So you have to learn this and understand this as you go through all VDOT projects, because each one has a role, but one overrides the other. So starting at the very bottom, you'll see the one that is the standard drawings. Standard drawings are at the lowest point of the hierarchy. Those standard drawings are, again, something that's been designed, it's something that's repetitive, and it'll be part of the project. However, there could very well be something in the standard specifications that overrides what's on that standard drawing. If that's the case, the standard specification rules. And you climb up this little ladder of hierarchy of priority, each step being higher and higher. So supplemental specifications, as it says, those were written to override or to supplement something in the standard specifications. And then as you move up, as I said earlier, the plans are specific to the project. So it's logical that anything that's on those plans will override anything in that hierarchy below that. So anything that's on a plan set will override the supplemental specs, could override the standard specs, or could override the standard drawings. As you move further up, the special provisions, those again are written in the contract, so those are specific to that project. Anything that's on that special provision overrides all the other things below that. And then lastly, the special provision copy notes, that's of the highest priority. Again, as I said, those are typically written specific to a project, and they will only be on that set of on that contract itself. So you'll see a special provision copy note in that specific contract. So let's talk just a minute about types of communication. Obviously, just like anything in life, we have a series of different types of communication that must occur, and those types of communication are critical to ensuring that the project is completed, and it's completed in a successful way for all parties involved, whether it be VDOT, the contractor, subcontractors, or even the community at large. Some types of communication that VDOT has for their projects are listed here, things such as a pre-construction conference. That pre-construction conference is what's done at the very beginning of the project, just like it says pre-construction conference. So prior to the project beginning, you are required to actually hold a pre-construction conference for every single project. So there's always a pre-construction conference for all projects, and that will occur again shortly before the beginning of construction. At that meeting, you'll talk about everything from schedule, how you're trying to execute the work. Anything that's come up that needs to be altered early on in the project will be brought up at that point in time. A lot of the environmental requirements, as well as some specifics again on how you're going to execute that job from day one, and then ultimately how you're going to get it completed on time and on budget. From there, VDOT talks about things such as formal meetings. A formal meeting is just like it says. It's something that is formal in the sense that it's going to be a planned meeting. It's going to be something that may occur monthly. You may decide at that pre-construction conference that we're going to hold monthly formal contract meetings, that the contractor will be there, VDOT will be there, maybe any relevant subcontractors will be at that meeting, and that meeting will have things like minutes to that meeting. So that meeting will be formal, it will be fully documented, and everybody that's necessary to be in the meeting will be part of that meeting. And again, the critical piece is that it's a fully documented meeting. But then we're also going to have things such as informal meetings or information sharing. And those happen throughout the life of the project. They may happen 5, 10, 20 times a day because you're executing the project. And for example, you may show up early in the morning and the contractor comes to the project inspector and says, hey, I need to talk to you a minute. I know I told you yesterday that we were going to start at station 100 plus 50. Our milling machine broke down. I'm not going to be able to start right there. We've changed our plans, so let's sit down and talk for a minute, and we'll regather what our plans are for the day. Let me communicate that to the project personnel, and you move forward. That's not a formal meeting. That's just an informal meeting that occurs each and every day and throughout the life of the project. You're constantly telling folks what's going on throughout the day and information sharing. You're just trying to make sure everybody's aware of what's going on throughout that project and throughout the day. Then there's written communication. One point I want to specifically make here is written communication in today's world is including things such as email. It used to be that you had to write a letter for everything that was done, and it was signed and it was mailed or it was hand delivered to somebody. But now we send an email to somebody, and that email is a formal written communication, and it is a documented type of written communication. So we have written communications on all projects, whether it be those minutes I talked about earlier for the pre-construction conference that occurred, or it be an email that I send you about altering the schedule for the project. But that is a written communication, even though it was sent via email. Project safety is something that's important, obviously, for all construction projects. For this module, we're going to just briefly go over project safety. This module is not intended to be a project safety module. However, we do need to make sure that you're fully aware of the criticality of ensuring that our projects are all executed safely. There are numerous dangers that exist around construction projects. I don't need to tell most folks that. It's one of the most dangerous industries out there right now, short of things like farming. Construction industry is extremely dangerous. So we want to make sure everybody goes home safely each and every day. And just as I talked about in the previous slide, communication is key to ensuring that you have safety throughout the life of that project. You have to make sure that everybody on the project understands what's going on each and every day. And certainly while that project is a certain element is being executed, you know exactly what's going on so that everybody is not surprised. Because when you get a surprise, things can be unsafe very quickly. We need to have clear and distribute those clear-cut guidelines to everyone that's in the organization to ensure that you have a policy of safety. That safety involves every single individual. They should know exactly what to expect and how to perform each and every task. So that's one of the reasons why you're in this class. We need to understand what our requirements are for each one of our individual tasks on a specific project. You have to be properly trained. Again, you're in this class to be trained on how to perform asphalt field functions and inspection and testing and so forth. But you need to ensure that you are properly trained for that function to include how to do that as safely as you possibly can. And that has to reoccur. You can't just assume that once you've got it done that it's good for life. Things change, so you have to retrain, and it has to be done in fairly frequent intervals. Those intervals need to be real frequent, actually, because that project is changing throughout the life. So some projects last 3, 4, 5 years, and throughout the life of those 3, 4, 5 years, you need to ensure that you're retrained on frequent intervals. And then clearly there are OSHA guidelines, and in Virginia there's VOSHA guidelines, and you need to ensure that you're fully aware of what all those requirements are. And those are something that's changed as well, so you have to be sure that you keep on top of those OSHA guidelines. And probably one of the most critical things you can do is have those safety talks. Almost all contractors do this, and they do this mostly daily. And they'll sometimes start each and every day on a project with a safety talk. And that by itself communicates to the staff exactly what's going on that project that day and how they're going to execute that work in a safe manner. Those safety talks are critical to ensuring a safe project. And then if you do have problems, hopefully they're not severe, you have to have those corrective actions. And those corrective actions are really critical to ensure that you don't have repetitive problems on projects, particularly as it relates to safety. So while this module is not intended to bring you up to speed on all the requirements for safety, we do want to make sure that everybody is safe throughout the life of each and every project out there. In summary, the Material Certification School program is part of the VDOT specification requirements. I told you that in the very beginning. It's section 114 of the Road and Bridge specifications details out what all those requirements are. One of the most critical things that we've talked about this morning is that hierarchy of specifications and communications and documents that VDOT uses throughout a project. Special provision copy notes are at that highest level. Remember that table that showed you how things in hierarchy and priority climbed up that ladder, and that special provisions and special provision copy notes are right at the top. So keep that in mind because that is critical. Projects start with pre-construction conferences. Every single project starts with a pre-construction conference. Once that contract's signed, but then there's also formal and informal meetings that I brought up that occur throughout the life of the project as well. You may have a monthly progress meeting that occurs as a formal meeting, and then you may have just daily meetings that are informal meetings on a construction project. And lastly, safety is everyone's priority, so we need to ensure that everybody goes home at the end of the day. If you have any questions, please use those this time to ensure that those are documented and that you get those submitted properly. Thank you very much.